Okay, so it's a workshop. We know it. So, hi, I'm Kamil. Not that slide, yeah. My name is Kamil. My last name is Kishela. Kishela, which is the best pronunciation, I think. And yeah, here's my picture. You can tweet me, follow me on GitHub, or even email me. This is my Twitter handle and all the things in internet handle. So, oh, not that slide. So today we will talk about building modern web application with usage of GraphQL, especially with Angular 2, but it's not so specific. So yeah, GraphQL. What is GraphQL? Oh, I can see here, so there's no point of looking there. What is GraphQL? This is the first question. And yeah, GraphQL is a data query language. It's not a protocol. It's not a I don't know, something different. It's not a framework. It's not this kinds of stuff. It's just a data query language, just like, I don't know, JavaScript. And yeah, basically it's a spec. So so you can look up. It's all in, like, I would say that it's not finished. So there are plenty of things that will be improved and stuff like this. But for now, seems pretty stable. And yeah, it was invented and used by Facebook in 2012. And since this is a good product, they wanted to open source it, and it was in May 2015. And yeah, this is basically a response to modern web application needs. So the next question would be, why Facebook invented GraphQL? So it was invented during the movement from HTML5 application. I think you probably all of you experienced the bad experience of Facebook app, like I don't know, 5 years ago or something. So, and they try to switch to native, but they managed to get really bad problems and it was hard to solve them, and it all was based on REST API. So it's like a big no to REST endpoint. And one of the problem was that on mobile devices, you don't want to overload your network. So you have to, like with REST, you have multiple round trips, which you get the idea. Like you get the list of I don't know, you get the endpoint, which is a feed or something, like list of something, and you get just the IDs and just the links. So you hit the server once, and then for each element you have to make another request, and then so on and so on. And this is very annoying. And with GraphQL, you can make it inside one request. So there is like one request per query. And the important thing is that on GraphQL, clients, like in REST, clients depends on server, which is a very problematic, because imagine that you have a REST API. This is like, I don't know, it's a version v1, so the first one, and you get the endpoint, which is a list of users, and there is a change on the server side, and you have to update all of your client side app because of the change. And with GraphQL, you can avoid that kind of stuff, because you create a query, and you is like you own the request. So you specify what data do you need, what is the schema of the data, and that kind of stuff, and you get only that data you want. So with REST endpoint, you would receive, I don't know, a bunch of unnecessary data, and with REST endpoint, you get only that what you want and nothing less, nothing more, which is like mind blowing. And second thing is that GraphQL is strongly typed. So imagine TypeScript, but for data query language. So it's even more powerful. Yeah, I will say cool a lot, so be prepared. So GraphQL is strongly typed. What it means? It means that you can do validation, and even on the client side. So before the actual query hits the server, and like before the request will be made, you get the validation. So you can see what are the types what are the fields of those types and stuff like this. And because of this strongly typed thing, GraphQL is self-documented. So the documentation writes itself. With RESTpoint, you would have to spend, I don't know, like bunch of resources to do like the documentation beside the actual API endpoint. So this is also cool twice. Yeah. So this is it. And it all, like, imagine that you can get from your IDE or, I don't know, your environment information about what data you can fetch and how this data looks like what is the type, like this is an integer or, I don't know, string or stuff like this. And this is a feature called introspection, which is not cool, but very powerful. And the next question would be, where is a place for GraphQL? So here's a graph, the first one, not the last one, but it's cool. So as you can see on the top of the screen, we have a client side part of our architecture, and there is a mobile app, there is a web app, wherever. Like GraphQL works with any platform you want. I don't like at the beginning. I don't represent the Apollo because I don't work for them, but I love them. Like, yeah, you can clap anytime you want. Or this was not a clapping; it was like opening the bottle. So, man, but the fame will kicks in. So, okay, and I'm also bad at jokes. So, be prepared. So, okay, so you have like a mobile app, web app, and this all kind of stuff works with GraphQL. And GraphQL lives on top of it. So you can use GraphQL with Apollo Stack, Relay, Loka. There are many other tools. But you can also avoid using them. You can just put the string, like the query into the string, send it to the server, and return, like get in return the actual result, which is like good. Okay, and as you can see, there is a gap between client and server. It means that GraphQL is a way of communicating between client and a server, and I will explain it more a bit later. I will show you the example. We will work some stuff. So yeah, and as you can see on server part, we have microservices, databases, external API. This is like any kind of data source you want, and you can put it on top of the GraphQL. So imagine that clients request a data, send a request, GraphQL compiles it, stuff like that, and GraphQL on the server side receive the actual data. So you have this connection. Like, it's not that GraphQL fetches the data, it only gets the data. So, and expose it to the client, any client. Cool. Okay, so the next question would be, how does GraphQL actually look like? And this is how. This is like hello world inside the GraphQL world. So me is a name of that query. Let's say this is a currently logged in user. And in return, you should get the actual name of that user. And yeah, and this is like, it looks like the result looks the same as the actual query, like the actual request. So which is, I will show it to you later. And okay, so what about problems? Like, what does GraphQL solve actually? As you can see, we have here, I think you see, yeah, like a basic REST API, and we fetch the, I don't know what it is, but imagine this is a feed or something, and you get the author, you get the not the photo, but some data. And imagine that your component or your application, whatever, need only some of the data. Like I put the red line here. So like, this is the data we don't want to, and this and that, and also this one. But we get this because you cannot really tell the REST endpoint what data do you want. And you could, because you could, like, I don't know, create another endpoint, but you get the endpoint madness, so it's not good. And yeah, the second thing is that you get the API documentation while you write the actual GraphQL server, which is powerful. Like, you don't spend much time creating this because it's just like this. And yeah, as you can see, I told you about multiple round trips to the client. So this is a feed. You get the list of things. and then you get like you hit the server again and again and again to get the information about photo. And imagine that each photo has an author, and you hit the author, and imagine that this is like 10 photos and of 2 authors. So you get like 5 requests for one author, and then 5 requests to another author, which is just not good. Like, oh, and the future of GraphQL looks like this. You will get the real-time data updates, and yeah, and there is a second thing called important. So it's like you get the, imagine that you have to, like, you need to fetch some data, and only part of the data needs to be fetched like immediately, and then you can, like, I don't know, in 10 milliseconds, and on the next request get the rest of the data. And this is that's the thing. And why I put the exclamation mark, like, I don't know which is explanation mark. No, it's not, but this is like a star. So, and it's described or won't, depends if Facebook need those internally. And this is really interesting because if Facebook doesn't want to, doesn't need anything internally, they won't expose it, they won't working on it. So even if you, like, okay, that's so much. And okay, so who is using GraphQL? Recently, GitHub exposed their API on to GraphQL, so which is cool. And then will come like plenty of companies in, like, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. It will be just madness. So you guys don't want to be left behind, I think. And okay, so let me show you. So imagine that query is a request. So you request the data, and you specify what data you need and what is the shape of the data schema and stuff like that. So this is the first thing called query. And yeah, this is a way to fetch data. Okay. And in query, you can declare data needs as you write the query. So you imagine that you have component, and it fetches like 3 fields. So you need to get only those fields, and this is like done with queries and GraphQL. And because it's JSON based, like sort of, you models the data the same way you think about the data. So you get the object, the fields, and like nested objects and stuff like this, which is very, very easy to be designed and fast and efficient. So yeah, because the result looks the same as the query, you can predict the results, like not even predict, because you know what the results look like, which is, and with REST endpoint, you have to go to the API documentation, see, but then imagine that version is like, there is an update and the documentation hasn't been updated yet, so it's like not so good. But yeah, and this is the thing I told you about components, that they need like actually sort of like some part of data, and that's it. So this is what query looks like, and this is what the result looks like. So it's basically the same, like sort of, because it's not a proper JSON, but okay, in Apollo we will get to there later. So second thing is mutation. Mutation is a next slide. Mutation is a way to manipulate data. So think of it as a post request or put or patch in REST endpoint. And this is how mutation looks like in GraphQL. So you specify the arguments, then you specify the actual mutation that is defined on the server side, and you put the arguments here. And in return, you get some object. Let's see, this is like add comment. So I think it will get the comment type object in return, and you can specify which data you want to get in return, which is like another thing that is cool and powerful and that's kind of stuff. So yeah, I won't talk about it. If you guys, I don't know if you all already git cloned some repository I put inside the comments. If not, that, yeah, we will start live coding. So first thing would be to open it, like, yeah. And you could use Yarn or npm install. I think Yarn is good because it's way faster and it's good. Just So first thing would be to, if you guys are ready. Oh, sure. It's let me see. Warsaw. Okay, so it's on the meetup page, and you get the first comment. No, the sub comment, because I forgot to add this. Yeah, and when you click, you can git clone and stuff like that. But basically, it's under my GitHub handle, and then Angular-REST-2-GraphQL. So, what? Yeah, it's open. It's called MSFT Open. But you have to open the browser and then log in and stuff like this. And when you get the error, just refresh until you don't get this error anymore. So okay, I will show you the actual app, how it looks like. It's that's cool. It's written in Angular, yeah, and it's based on REST. So this is how it looks like. I think this is not the proper. Yeah, this is proper. Okay, so this is a list of directors, and there are I don't know, 2. Yeah, each one have two movies. So, and let me show you this. Okay, it's good. And as you can see, API refresh. And as you can see, we have a endpoint called directors, and we get the list of directors. Basically, it's a href, which is a link to the actual endpoint for that director, single director. So we get like 5 of them. Yeah, and then we have some data, stuff like this. And as you can see, we already use only name. So it's a first name, last name, and that's it. And the picture or image. Yeah, picture is quite nicer. And that's it. We don't need to fetch the bio to birthday and href and I don't know, movies. And the second endpoint is called Oriarn, like oldery woman. Okay. And the second endpoint is called movies, but we have a sub endpoint, which is a sub for director / ID of the director / movies, and we fetch the movies of the director, which is so complicated, but it's not. And yeah, and that's it. This is basic REST API. Not the best one, but the good one, enough. And yeah. Okay, and basically we will do things like okay, so we have something like, let me show you the actual Express app, and we get the router, we define the routes, and we have controllers. So DB stands for database, so we have a service. Oh, and here we can put, I don't know, SQL or Postgres, or I don't know, external API like GitHub or something. And yeah, but I've created something like this, not this one, not this, yeah. So this is a service that gets some data, but imagine that this is some database, like, I don't know, SQL or something like this. But it's not important. And as you can see, we return some data and we send it as a response to the client. And that's it. This is the basic thing of REST endpoint. So are you guys ready? Sure. Everybody have npm installed or the thing. And you have to npm install inside the client director and the server directory, because there are 2. Yeah. So open your IDEs. Let me just clear it. So the first thing would be to create let's go to the server let's go to the SRC and to the to this one. Okay, and as you can see, we have something like REST. So let's create GraphQL. Okay, let's put here. Oh, there is an index. So let's create index 2, not 2, but TS. Yeah. Okay. And so first thing would be to here, but we don't do this because we already pre-installed those dependencies, but we will use the Apollo GraphQL -server. Let me show you. It will be something like this, GraphQL server, and we will use the Express, but you can use like, I don't know, like anything here. And basically we have a support, like not we, but Apollo Stack have a support for 5 servers, I think, so for the framework. So we will use Express, then we will press, I don't know, enter or something, but we won't do this. And yeah, so let's go to the server. And we created some files. So let's create some content. We will use, it's all in TypeScript and Webpack, so we want to use the ES6 modules. And yeah, so we want to create a GraphQL endpoint. So let's GraphQL, and we call it Express because it's a function that creates GraphQL Express. So Express for like the GraphQL endpoint for Express server. And we install something like this, -express. Yeah, that's it. And as you can see inside the, let me just, oh. Is it good? Yeah, okay. And as you can see, we have something like this. We expose the router. So let's create a function. Let's create a function. Let's make it default. Okay. Let's make it default. And we will get here an app, which is okay, which is default function. Yeah, which is an instance of the Express server. And Express server looks like this. So we will expose this variable to our function. So imagine that this is an app. Yeah, and let's create something like this, which is a GraphQL endpoint. It will live under the //GraphQL. And yeah, so let's, I have a snippet here, so to make things the same. Oh, and you can, like, if anyone, like, there's plenty of people that don't have their computers, laptops, so this repository after our meetup here, I will expose the, like, I will push the actual steps, so we can do this step by step, like, when you get, like, when you don't get something or want to get back into some part, you can just go to step, I don't know, 1, 2, 5, so stuff like this. So yeah, and it's basically, we will put here some options. So this method creates a GraphQL server inside under this path. So that's it. Like, we have a warning, but because we don't provide any options, like as any, okay, but not, we won't do this. So yeah, that's it. So let's get back to the index.ts, which is our main file of rest of our Express server, and import this GraphQL. Oh, this was something like this, API/GraphQL. Okay, and as you remember, yeah, I will just comment it. Okay, and we want to expose, like, yeah, we want to expose the app, which we did. So yeah, basically we have a GraphQL endpoint. That's it. Like, you don't even have to do any sort of things to. We will only provide the schema, the resolver, stuff like this, but not right here. Like, not okay. So let's move to the another step that will be. Oh, and I will show you something because I get lost. I don't know, Instagraph. Okay, npm start. And I will show you the Okay. There is a tool called GraphiQL, which is in browser IDE to look up your data, to manipulate the data, and that kind of things. And as you can see, I will show you a couple of things, which is like, even I don't know what to do here, like right now. So let's go to the docs. Oh, I haven't seen that. Oh man, this is like, okay, forgot to, but who cares? So yeah, this is a documentation that wrote itself because of introspection. And as you can, like, maybe I'll show you. Okay. Yeah. So here is introspection. It requests, like, it made requests to the actual server, GraphQL endpoint, to fetch the all kinds of stuff that helps you to create something like this, which is cool because you, like, imagine that you have an IDE and you type something inside, like you create a project, you type inside IDE, like, I don't know, queries and mutations, stuff like this, and you get, like, you already know how it looks like, so you get the validation while you're writing it, which is cool. Yeah. Okay, so let's create some, like, let's use first query. So as you can see, we have this available. So let's create, I don't know, feed. Okay, and we have auto-completion, so it's even better. And feed is an array of photo type objects. So what we want to receive, let's say ID and number of likes, and I don't know, URL, and we had hit this, and we get the result, which is like feed array of what is it, photo. So yeah, it's basically this. So yeah, this is a cool feature, cool tool. So we want to have it inside our server. I'm very bad at doing two things at once, so, but you will notice, like you already noticed. So yeah, so let's create a GraphiQL, which is the name of that that tool. GraphiQL Express, because we use Express. And let's put it under, I don't know, GraphiQL, which is so obvious. And provide some options. So we need to tell it where the GraphQL endpoint lives. So, and the point URL, it's under GraphQL. So yeah, and yeah, we have a GraphiQL installed of our server. So let's run npm star. And the first, okay, so let's just do this for now, or no, okay, so let's do something like this. No, as any, it always works. And hit that again. And when we go to the, it's for, oh, okay, and GraphiQL, it's working, but we must provide schema, which is our next step. Thank you, GraphiQL. Okay, so let's go back to this one. We did, let me see the steps. Yeah, director type. So we want the director type to be defined inside our GraphiQL. So let's create a file called schema, TS, not JS. And yeah, let's create a constant and put the name, I don't know, root schema, which is like our root schema, which is so obvious. And as you can see here, which is our endpoint, EMDB, yeah, we get this data. So let's just copy paste it. It's under db/data/imdb, no slash, .ts, like this kinds of stuff. So let's copy paste it to here, but let's put, okay, so let's copy paste it. Let's call it. It's just
No, it's expect to be okay. So it's a type. We define a type, which is basically like an interface or just a type inside TypeScript. So let's call it director. Okay, and then put this data, like this structure inside this. So yeah, it's an ID and it's a number. So I think it's even integer. So let's create something like this. And it's an exclamation mark, which marks this field as required. So we don't do this like in TypeScript. We do this, which is optional. And now it's required. So first name, it's a string, but we should do the same for last name. And then, since there is no date in GraphQL, we want to do something like this, which is a float. So we get the data under the float value. So that's it. And yeah, do the same for bio and for an image. And yeah, that's it. Maybe without bio, just to mark things like required and optional. So yeah, we've got our schema. So what to do next? The next to be, let me show you. Yeah, to add the query. So let me take a look at my snippet to not get confused. Okay. So basically, GraphQL needs from you one object, which is called schema, and you put here like query, you put here mutation, you put here subscription, every feature of GraphQL. So this is like the root object that that GraphQL starts to like go through the tree. So it's a query, and it has to have a type. So let's call a query and query, which is so obvious. So let's go to the type query, and yeah, what we want to expose is a list of directors. So let's call it directors, and yeah, this is the interesting part. This is a query, and it returns object, or I don't know, some data of some type. So directors would return array of object under type of director. So that's it. And if you want to, we will do this later, but let's create something. You want to expose the director, you get director, and that's it. Yeah, so we have our schema, everything works. That's cool, but we want to connect it to the actual server. So let's go to another part. And let me show you these slides because I forgot about it. And I made it like I spent on it like 2 hours, so we definitely should see it. So as you can see, this is a server, and server is a combination of two things. So we created a schema, but so we know what data we can expose, but how to fill up this schema with data. Here comes resolvers, and yeah, and basically that's it. Like schema, resolvers, and this is GraphQL. And then you combine those things inside one and send it to the GraphQL endpoint, like execute it inside the GraphQL server. And you can do this on many ways, but we will do this just like the Apollo stack does. So let me show you. Yeah, this is the schema. We already created this. So as you can see, this is a name, nickname, type that is called query. It returns users, which is an array of users. Yeah, this is the root schema. So it's like the information to the GraphQL, what we will do and what is available. And this is resolver. So, okay, so as you can see here, yeah, it's visible and readable, which is so important. You get the schema, and this is the resolver for the schema. So it's an object, JSON object. Yeah, just plain object, not JSON even. And as you can see, like here is a query, here's a query, here's the users, here's two. And it returns an array, and we get all users, which should return an array, and it
and it does, so it's good. And here we have a user, which is another type, and we get the name, nickname, and as you can see, we get something like root.name. And this is strange because from where it came from. So each resolver gets those three variables, which is a root, arguments, and context. And I will explain to you the root. This chart is huge. Like, yeah, it's complicated, but let's go through. So as you could see, we got a query type, and there was a query called users, and it returned an array of users. So and we provided the value, which is an array. So we get like, let's see, we get like n users. Let's imagine there are 3. So we get user 1, 2, and 3. So, and since this is an array, we have to provide values for each type. So let's go to the first, which is a user 1, and we expose the user type object, which is which contains a name and a nickname. So root is a value that it's a value that contains the result of the resolver of the previous. Like we resolve the values for this query, which is users, and we can pass this value into, like, because this is a graph, so we get like, I don't know, this is a user, then we have like branch for 1 user, 2nd user, 3rd user, 4th user, and stuff like this. So we get this value, we can pass this value to this branch and to this branch and to the other branch, like I did user 1, user 2, user n. So this is an object we got from this resolver. So root represents the value of the previous result. Yeah, so this is basically it. So we can just reference to this. So we get root and name, root and nickname with low dash. So yeah, and basically that's it. So the next argument is arguments. So imagine that you want to expose only couple of users, like only, I don't know, first 5 of them. So you can specify something like this. You get the first. This is an argument of that query, which is in brackets. So it's in an integer, and it's required. So you have to provide it. And yeah, you can use something like this: user, root, arguments, and return this value using this argument. So it passes to this object. Yeah, and then context. Imagine that you have we used here authentication. No, here it's users. So imagine that you have a working class that exposes the users or something like this, like some data from the database, and you don't want to pass it to each scheme or each resolver. You want to pass them like globally, so you can use a context. And with this value, with this reference, you can, like, because of this reference, you get this, so you can access the context inside every resolver. So it's even more powerful when you get the context, like, I don't know, off for authentication, stuff like this. Because imagine that you have a bunch of ES6 modules, and each module contain resolvers and schema for that part of, like, some part of code, and you have to import each user object for each ES6 module, but you don't have to. You can use context and like just reference to it. So yeah, that's good. Now we will get to this later. Oh, okay, so this is a server. Okay, so move on. We created something like this. What we have to do, we have to create a resolver. So let's create something like, it was called root schema, so let's call it root resolvers, and it's an object. Okay. Okay, it's an object. So first thing, query. which is here, and we want to return directors. So we create directors, and this is a function. It's a function, and yeah, like important thing to notice is that each resolver can take the promise, so you don't have to return the actional value in sync. You can make async requests, so it's good. So let's put here just an empty array and go to the, like, this is a list of directors, but there is none. So let's do something like this. Okay, and we have our server not. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. It's a step. It's a step for. Okay. You will screw my app. No, just kidding. Or you know what? I will expose to everything. So let's. Or no, it's okay. I will do something like this, but I will have to. Okay. GraphQL or steps. GraphQL. Okay, you should have it. We go to the server. Okay, so what we did, we created a resolver, which is inside the GraphQL. Okay, that's it. And let's open the. Okay. Oh, I see. Because we don't have this. Oh, yeah, because we don't have. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's working. So let's go to the. So we need to provide the schema here. So what to do? We can use a package called GraphQL tools, which we pre-installed and stuff. So let's import the make executable schema from GraphQL tools. GraphQL tools is a package written by Apollo, which helps you to create a server and stuff around GraphQL. And it's very opinionated, so you can or cannot agree with those solutions, but I agree, so we will use it. And yeah, so we have this function. What this function does is that it compiles the actual string into object, like many objects, and combine the root resolvers, like the resolvers, with that fields and queries and types and stuff. So we will use it like this, and we provide type defs, which is a root schema, and resolvers, which is a root resolvers. Okay, and we want to expose it to the server. So what to do? We will create this is a schema. So let's do something like this, and let's expose it as default schema. Okay, and now go to the GraphQL, and we want to put this like schema something. So let's import, not import. Okay. Oh, this is the default, so we don't have to do this. So import schema from, which is a schema module, and we can put this here, but we can do the shorthand, which is something like. Oh, I see. This is where is it? It's not a module. I don't think so. Export default schema. Okay, screw it. We will check it. npm start.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's not. Let's go to the graphical. Let's refresh it. Yeah, there is no error anymore, so we can see the documentation. We get the query. Where is the query? Yeah, there are directors. Alright. Okay, so let's fetch one. Like there's no data, so there is no point of doing it, but and we want, I don't know, ID and bio. Click, and we get empty result, which is good because it's working. And I'm happy when something is working, so let's move on. The next thing would be to, let me check, we did this, so yeah, we will want to expose some data, and how to get this data. We can use context. Okay, and let's go to the REST controllers. So we want this, and this is the controller. So let's go to this controller. It's from directors. Okay, it was called get directors. Okay, so we get something like this. We can just copy paste it. Yeah, okay. No, just this. Okay, and put this. No, we want the context, so there is no point of doing it. So let's get the database only, and then we will get the methods. So it's DB. So we want to import this DB. Okay, but let's go to this and copy this. Okay. And I think it's, yeah, something like this. So this way we get the context, which is a DB, and we put it to the context of GraphQL server. So we now can do something like this. Let's copy paste the actual method to get the directors. And as you can see, this is a promise, which is cool. And go to the schema. Yeah. And yeah, we got a resolver and we want to expose some data and not an empty result. So we can do this. And how to get this DB. So we will get root, we will get args, and we will get the context. And we can get something like this. And this is how we get to the context inside the resolvers. And as you can see, I will npm start our server again. Let's hope there is no bugs. Yeah, okay. And let's refresh it. We don't have to, but we want to get the actual docs. So we had our query. Let's fetch it. Yeah, we get David Fincher, because why not? Quentin Tarantino and stuff like this. So let's show what the data we can, like only first name, surname. Oh, this is a last name. Yeah. Yeah, so this is like our 5 directors, which I really like. They are mainstream, but it's not important. So yeah, the step next would be to add movies, because we have directors, but there is no director without movie. So let's do this. Okay, so first thing to do would be to specify a type. And this is a type of movie. And as you can see, we can get into imdb.ts, which we did exactly with a director. And we can copy paste it into this file. It's optional, but it's not. So it's an integer with exclamation mark because it's required. And we have a director, but let's not add this yet. Or maybe that. Okay, so it will be a director here. And there is no movie without director, so it's required. So a title of the movie, okay, it's a string and it's required, of course. Okay, we get the description, which could be or could be not available, and released in, which is an integer because it's a date of releasing the movie, so it's 1992, stuff like this. And we get the image. So picture is not required. So we've got the movie. We want to expose movies, so let's do the same as we did with
the vectors. Okay, and then we, as you can see, we specify this inside the query type, and yeah. So we've got something like this. We can just copy paste it. Let's call it movies. Okay, and probably, fingers crossed, it's something like this. So context.db.get movies camel cased. And that's it. We can restart our server. Yeah, and we can hit refresh. Let's go to the docs. Let's go to the query. Yeah, there is query called movie. So let's do something like this. Movies. Okay. Yeah. I don't know, maybe title. Yeah. And let's get the director. What will happen? Oh, there is no director. Yeah, it's true because we haven't provided the movie and we didn't provide the director. So let's do this. How to do this? We have something like this. Okay, so as you can see, we have a director inside the movie type. So let's create a resolver for this type. So it's a movie. Okay, and director. Okay, so yeah, okay, and it's a director. So okay, so let's return something, and we have a function. Like, you have to believe me, we have a function inside our context.db, which is get director, and it requires some ID, which is like, okay, ID. But how to get this? As you could see, we inside the actual app, inside the REST endpoint, we expose the list of movies, and each like, let's say we expose a movie, and each movie have a link to the endpoint of this director, and it's just an ID. So yeah, and this method called get movies do the same. So in our database we've got relations. So each field called director is an ID of that record inside the directors table. So yeah, so we can use this value, which is the ID of the director, inside of this resolver, because it was resolved as a previous graph. So we can do something like root, which is a result of this. We will go through this, like, I will show it to you. So when we go to, like, when we request some data from this query, we go to, like, first we go to this because it's a query, then we go here, and yeah, what's next? We get here. So we return some value, but it's not like the list of movies. But then we go to, like, after this, we have to resolve this value, like each object of movie type. So we go here, and GraphQL is smart. So if, let's imagine that, I will show it to you, something like this. So this is a result of, let me show you. Okay, so, okay, so when you call this, you get something like, this is an array of some objects, and you get something like ID 12, director, I don't know, 2, title. One good thing is that I will show it to you this 1992, and title, which is, I don't know, Pulp Fiction. Okay, So this is an object, and GraphQL is smart because as you can see, here is an ID. And how GraphQL know that this field matches this field? Because it's like ID. There is no point of like pointing the same fields that matches the keys, So there is no point of doing it. And imagine that this get movies really, it returns something like this. So how to match this with this value? We can do something like this inside the resolver. So let's call this as resolver. Okay, and it's root. Okay, so how to expose this value? And this is a resolver of release in. Yeah. So how to return this? You get something like this. Yeah, and it matches the same values. So with that knowledge, we can go to do something like okay. So because of that stuff, we can receive the ID of that movie, we want director. So we have to do this, and let's go to the okay. Let's run the server. Yeah, there is some bug, which is I cannot find name context, which is true. Arguments, context. Okay. Yeah, it works. So let's refresh to get the actual docs. And now we get something like this. So first name. And as you can see, we have a nested query, which is cool. And yeah, it requires only this kind of stuff. So with, I don't know, 12 lines of code, you get codes, you get the GraphQL endpoint working. So it's good. Like it's not hard to create, as you can see. So we get the list of movies, we get the list of directors. So let's move to second part, which is adding movies to the directors. So let's create something like this, which is a movie. Okay, and we want to expose create a resolver for this director. Okay, and it's movies. Okay. Yeah. So no, it's a function. It gets something like this. Args and context. And because there is no movies under director, we can't tell which movies we want to fetch. But we have a function. I created it for a REST endpoint, so we can reuse it under DB, and it's called get movies by director. And how we can get the ID of the director? We can use root.id because we already resolved the value for this type, so we can pass it here. Okay, let's see if it works. It's in watch mode, so I don't know why I'm restarting, but yeah. And get the movies, and it's, I don't know, title. Bang, and we've got Fight Club, which is David Lynch, I think. And yeah, we've got subqueries, and we can like do nested queries in a very deep level. So okay, so let's move to the next part, because we want to also fetch only we want to fetch movies from that director, which we can reuse it inside here. So this is like one component, this is second component, and those components have another component that fetches films, like movies, for that director. I will show it to you later when we go to the part of creating client side. And yeah, so let's create a movies by director query. I won't explain it because there is no point of two things at once. Director of do the same on and on. Okay, and it's a query. Now root args context. Okay, we will return context.db.get movies. Get movies by director, and we want some ID of the director. So we will create our first argument, which is let's call it, let's to be more root ID. Where root ID? Here ID? Yeah, and it will, yeah, good one. Yeah, so yeah, thanks a lot. But I will explain it to you how to get this ID from this query. So we will pass the ID, and it's an integer, and it's required. And now we can get this ID by using arguments, and like this, you can pass this function. And yeah, so it was a good. Oh, it's, yeah. It's my pleasure. So this is our first book because it was first person who picked. We created movies, so it's a bad joke, but it was like we created movies, so I'm ciągle movies. So you get the first book. Yeah, let's keep the awkward part. And yeah, now we can go to because we have all the things that we need inside our server, like inside our app, because we created in a server. So let's move to the client side. Okay, let's see. Let's move to let's make it run. And let's create another terminal repository, Angular Warsaw client. Okay, let's close this. Yeah, it's running. So let's go to the client. And I will show you the actual components. So this is a basic, like a standard thing. So we get app component, which is our root component. And I will show you the app module. So as you can see, we have an app component, some bunch of other components. And yeah, this is our bootstrapped component. So what it contains a list of directors, but it's a container. So it fetches data. Let me show it to you. Yeah, we have director list. So it's a component called directors list component, and yeah, it get the input, which is an array of directors of director. So yeah, so where the data came from? This data came from this component, which is a container. So we have like smart components and dumb components, stuff like this. And yeah, as you can see, it's observable. And we got this observable from some service. So yes, from some service. So let's go to the service. This service is just a REST API fetcher. So you get something like this is get directors, and we fetch directors. Like this is an array, so we get, let me show you the actual, well, let's screw it. So we get something like this address, then /directors/ so on. As you can see here, director ID, movies, etc. Not important, but this service exposes the list of directors. So yeah, so and it passes to directors list component, which display the director component, which is also a dump component. It's only a presentation part. So yeah, and it's the same for movies. So how we can replace the REST endpoint with GraphQL? So first of all, we have to create a Apollo client, and Apollo client is a, let me show it to you. Let's call it under the apollo.ts. Okay, we already pre-installed Apollo client. Okay. Yeah. And what we want to do, we want to create a client which is which tells the Angular 2 Apollo service. Like, I will go to this later, but you define there where the data come from and how to fetch the data, what features should be enabled, stuff like this. And it's called Apollo client. Like, yeah, you probably guessed. Apollo client. Okay, so let's create a client. New Apollo. Okay. And by default, this Apollo client, let me show it to you. Yeah, and basically, if you have an app working in the same localhost, the same port, like the same origin, and the GraphQL works under, like, lives under the /GraphQL, you're done. Like, it's basically it. Like, you don't have to need specify anything else. But yeah, and that's it. So we can, but we don't have it under the same origin. So we have to create a layer for it, like define the network. So let's maybe not define, but get the create network interface. Interface in your face GraphQL. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Gracias, amigo. Okay. And okay, so where the actual server lives, it's something like this. It's GraphQL, but we will get to this. So it's our, yeah, it's GraphQL. So how to pass this inside the network interface? Like, Apollo client have this thing called network interface. So you don't even have to hit the server. You can mock up this Apollo client in an easy way and do the tests and stuff. So it's really powerful. And you can also, instead of using fetch, you can like fetch API, which is, or I don't know, HTTP service and stuff like this, or any other solution. You can, I don't know, use WebSocket stuff, because like you can provide the way of fetching data because you create some sort of custom network interface, which is also very powerful. So, and yeah, we have to specify the URI to this endpoint. Yeah, that's it. And yeah, and let's put this, like, let me show it to you. Here's some options, and we want to specify the network interface. Yeah. So we can pass this, which is a constant, to here. Yeah. Like this, but we want to keep things in shorthand. So, okay, so we've got a client, and where is the Angular 2 part? So here it is. We go to the app module, and as each, like every library have those ng modules, and Apollo, Angular 2 Apollo, this is the name of our package. Yeah. I created like 99% of it, so if you guys will have any question how it works and like anything, you have like you can ask anything you want. Like, because like after the maybe not event, but the like the live coding part. So Apollo module is a name from this for using Apollo, which is like, what is Apollo? Yeah, that's a good question. So what is Grapollo? Apollo is like, you can, let me show it to you. Okay, as you can see, let's create some, I don't know, directors, ID, and that's it. Okay, and let's go to this network. Let's hit OK, and then something like this. And as you can see, okay, this is a payload. Oh, so it's just a string. So, and it goes to, okay, and it goes to, yeah, and it goes to the GraphQL endpoint. So you don't even have to use Apollo, but I will show you some features, and like Apollo is really helpful because you have to, like, with Apollo you get the RxJS support and stuff like this, like all the things like fetching, caching data. Like, you don't have to, but I recommend to. Like, there is no point of not doing this. So yeah, but you can see you can use just raw HTTP request to hit the GraphQL endpoint. With some data, I get the data in return, and that's it. So let's go to this. Okay, so we've got Apollo module, and let's import this here. And yeah, it's basically it. No, it's not. We have to provide a client. So how to get this client? Oh, it's Apollo client. So where the Apollo client lives? Here. So we need to export this client. And okay, and import this one. So it's called client. It's Apollo, double L. Okay, and we can pass this here. But it's not true. Yeah. And yeah, and it's basically it. You have the Apollo client working with your application. So we will do the first thing. Let me show you that there is no errors. Like, I don't know, but let's check. Okay. Yeah, it's working. So let's hit refresh. Yeah, but as you can see, we still use REST endpoint. So let's do first thing. First thing would be to, let's go to the app component. There is directory container. So let's go here and let's go to container. And yeah, we can use Angular 2 Apollo here. So Angular 2 Apollo is a server that comes from Apollo, from Angular 2 Apollo, which is so obvious, and there is a typo, yeah. Apollo Angular, yeah, and that's it. And you can use it as like this data service. So let's replace this. Let's call it Apollo, okay, and let's call Apollo get directors. There is no get directors, so we can do something like this. Apollo, let me show you the slides. So yeah, this is a query. So way to fetch data and stuff like this. Okay. So this is an Angular to Apollo part. As you can see, we imported. There is a typo too. Yeah, I see it now. Okay, so we imported Angular to Apollo or Angular to Apollo. So yeah, we get this under Apollo property, and there is a method called watch query, which is it returns an observable, and it's a observable from RxJS, so we can use it with map operators and stuff. Yeah, and that's it. And you can subscribe to it, like that kind of stuff. So let's use this watch query, and we have to provide some query, and let's write this query. So const query. No, it's not an object. It's a string. So let me show it to you. Okay, now this is here. No, there is no slide. Okay, it's not important. But let's create our query, which is a query, and call it, I don't know, get directors. Yeah, get directors. And we want to fetch directors. Okay, but we don't want to fetch like all. It's not working. Like there is no such a thing. It's just to like imagine. So yeah, we don't want to fetch everything because it's GraphQL. It's not REST point. No, it's a joke. So what we need to fetch? Okay, we go this way. We add something like this. So let's go to the director. We've got image. We got last name, first name, and yeah, and that's it. So let's go first name and maybe ID because ID is wholly important, and something like last name and image. Yeah, I think. And it would work, like we could put query here and it would work, but yeah, but we need to parse the string into like GraphQL document. And the best practice would be to parse that string before the runtime. So when you get to this part, you get the GraphQL document and not a string. So let's use some, it's a GraphQL, yeah, from GraphQL tag. And let's import this, like it's a package that transforms the string into GraphQL document. You don't really have to do this, like it does it for you, so it's good. And yeah, and this is a query. And yeah, Krzysztof Gonciarz. Say hi to Krzysiek. Okay. Okay, so, but watch query returns an observable, yeah, but it's not like usual observable. It contains a bunch of methods to help you enjoy the Apollo experience. So, and this observable is called Apollo Query Observable, and this is just an extension. So this is the same as observable, but contains some custom methods on top of it. So we will do something like this. And any. Okay, let's call it any. And yeah, and that's it. And this way we've got. We will fetch the watch query, like this query, which is a list of directors, to this part. And since this is async pipe, we don't have to subscribe and unsubscribe some sort of like that kind of stuff. But let me show you something like what is the result actually look like. Import RxJS, add operator, do. Okay, so let me show you do result. Okay, yes. Okay, let's console log it. Result. Okay, so let's. Oh, it's working. Okay. So we created a query. We fetched data from the GraphQL endpoint, but what is the result? So let's go to Angular. Let's hit refresh. Let's go to the console, and as you can see, there is like bunch of exception, and this is the result. So as you can see, there is a data loading and network status. Loading is deprecated, like not yet, but it will be. And network status tells you what is the status of that query. So if it's completed, if not, that kind of stuff, because you can fetch only data, like part of data, and then like with data caching, like I will show it to you later, you can, like every time you fetch data from the server, it saves the data, because data caching, it saves the data to the caching system, and when you do the same, like 5 times, it gets the data from the caching system instead of hitting the server, so you don't overload the networks. And yeah, that's it. And data represents the result of our queries. So there is directors. which matches this part. So let's but how to get this data directly inside this expression? We can use a thing called select pipe, which is a pipe provided by Angular to Apollo, and let's get directors. Let me do something like this. Okay. Now you can see all. And we want to get directors. Let's hit refresh. And as you can see, we get we didn't have to, I don't know, make any other changes. We only switched the way of fetching data. We get only those fields we need. So first name David, ID, image, and last name, and it's good. With REST-point, we would have like bio, birthday, and stuff like this. So this is it. But let me show you, because there is a select pipe, we could use, I don't know, a map. So let's use this instead of select pipe because I don't like it. And map result, in return we get data, or even do this. Data, directors, and mark it as you can see, there is an error, but it's because each map operator returns unobservable, and it's not a like usual observable, it's Apollo query observable, so we have to do this. Like we have to resolve the problem, but it's not so important right now. Internally in Angular to Apollo. So let's see if it works. It's supposed to. Yeah, it's working. So let's move to the other part, which is movies list container. Here we also fetch the same data from the REST endpoint. So let's go to the import. Import Angular to Apollo. Okay. From Angular. Yeah, I'm doing it fast because I want to show it to you like many features. It will be like the most exciting part. And so let's replace this with Apollo. Let's use Apollo. Okay, let's use watch query, which is like the same. Let's create a query. It will live under this const query, which is an array, and let's create this one. So let's call it get movies. Let's get movies. Okay. And those movies are from, like, should be related to some director. So we get the director. So let's see what data we need. Let's go to the movie. We need the title, released in. So let's type this. Since this is those are the movies from the some director, we need to get this, like movies by director, and we want to pass the argument. So it will be the argument called ID. It's an integer. Oh, no. It's it goes here, and here we pass the actual argument. So like this. So we here create an argument, and then we pass the variable inside this argument, like inside this to this argument. So, and in return we want to get what was it? Title and released in. Released in. Okay, sure. So it's this, and as you can see, we need to get this GraphQL parser from package called GraphQL tag. $sign. It's like this way you create some variable, like, you know, and it's so you get so you create a variable called ID, and you can pass this ID to like many, like, I don't know, movies by different director, you know, and then you can pass the same here, stuff like this. Okay, so we have this. We need Apollo query observable. Yeah, this is like, let's mark it here. And this time let's move the select pipe. And we want to get movies by director, but let's see. Okay, something like this. Let's check if it works. No, it's not, because of, yeah, because of, oh, because we need the variable. So how to pass this variable, like the value for this variable, inside the watch query? We have an option called variables, which is an object, and it's called ID. So, and this ID is came from director. I think so. Yeah, let's check it. Yeah, this director. Let's see if it works now. No, it's not. So this is my ID. Yeah, it works. So yeah, it's okay because we get this data. Let me show it to you. Yeah, because it's in cache. So okay, so there's no point of doing it. But imagine that we get each component fetches their own data. So we get like this component, fetch the title and image. And so it's one request. Then we have this component, which is a list of another components. And this component fetches like those two are combined into one component. And you fetch like a list of these movies, like those movies. So this is another request. And you get 1, 2, 3, 4, and so 2, 4, 5 directors, so you get like 10. Yeah, it's simple math. So how to avoid it? We can do something like this. It's not in the steps, it's the improvisation. So there is a feature called query batching. I will show it to you on the slides. Where are the slides? Slides are here. Yeah, so let's talk about features. Let me show you if we do the proper thing. Yeah, we basically done everything. So what are the features? Feature of GraphQL, like by GraphQL I mean GraphQL, not the Apollo, is self-documentation. So we already talked about it, and we talked about introspection, but go deeper into this. As you can see, there is this query, and you can, because it's an introspection, so you can ask what data is like what data is defined inside the GraphQL endpoint. So let's do this. I hope it's working. Yeah. And as you can see, we get query, we get director, some native values, so types, and movie, stuff like this. So it's good. Okay. And yeah, because of the introspection, you get this documentation, which is here inside GraphQL. So you can create like your own documentation inside your own project. And yes, so it's good. And I talked to you about query batching, and query batching, it's visible, yeah. So this is a simple Instagram profile page, and you get some photos. So imagine that each component is fetches their own data. So we pass ID of that photo, and you fetch the data for that photo. So you get one request, second request, third request, like multiple requests, and then also this is like a big component that fetches the profile information, and you get like 8 or even more round trip to the server. So you get like 8 requests. And with query batching, you get only 1. And this is how the query batching works. So imagine that we call watch query method or some other methods of Angular to Apollo service in this time. So in interval of 10 milliseconds, like because since 0.5 version of Apollo client, you can specify this value. So you can even wait 1 second to make the request. like anytime. So imagine that each okay, thanks for the follow-up. Okay, so imagine that each this thing matches the component. So it's one component, second component, stuff like this. And this is a timeline. So we hit one watch query, then second, and etc. and so on. So those components, those GraphQL query calls, will be transformed into one request, and in return you get also one request because it's a get, so you get the data inside only one request, so it's good. And imagine that you create an app that but let's implement it. Like, enough of talking. So we created like create network interface, but we want to create batching interface, something like this. Let me show you batching interface. Batching. Oh, it's not. Yeah, batching. Thank you so much. Batching network interface. Network interface. So let's create this one, and let's specify the batch interval. Let's do this. Yeah. And this way, like only with this, you have this ability. So you don't have to like specify that these elements have to be batched together and stuff. You get only like one option and that's it. And batching is a feature of Apollo server, like this GraphQL dash server dash express, stuff like this. Like not only Apollo, but the server should contain the transport batching to support this. So yeah, it's enough of query batching. And I will show you the optimistic UI. And yeah, so you want to get like I will show it to you later how subscriptions work, but imagine that you want to get the real-time feeling. So you want to do something and get the result like immediately. So it's possible with optimistic UI. It's a feature of Apollo client. So as you can see, we have some application, which is a GitHunt, and GitHunt is a like basic example, like very comprehensive, that contains all the features and stuff. So right now I'm developing it by myself. So if you guys want to help, even because you are from Warsaw, I will buy you a beer or something, like, I don't know. So yeah, so this is an app. We want to add some comment, and as you can see, there is like 1, 2, and 3 options, like points. These are the red ones. So we type it's awesome, we hit the submit, and as you can see, we get the result like immediately. And let's look at this part and also at the third part. And on the left side, like, yeah, it's good because I can walk. So as you can see, we hit this, we get the result, but then we get the actual response from the server, like, and like this. So it's optimistic UI. And how it works, when we do the mutation, which I didn't cover today, but you get the idea, and we do some post request patch or like that kinds of stuff, like some mutation, and mutation is to like change something in the data. So we call the mutation and we send 2 requests. One is a request to the data caching, and in return we get the optimistic UI, optimistic response, and we can update the UI while we're getting the optimistic response. So it's powerful. And while this happen, like the second request come to the hits the server. Server tells like us to it's not so optimistic response, so it won't be like, let's say we want to add a comment, but we don't have an authorization. So in response, we will get like we will be notified about let's revert these changes. So this is like the basic, basic thing of optimistic UI. I told you about data caching, and this is like my best feature in my opinion, of course. Imagine that we have 2 pages. First page, that's cool, that's so cool. first page is list of something like repositories. It's a Git hunt, so it's like a product hunt, but for GitHub repositories. And as you can see, it's so quick I can't even. Yeah, as you can see, we hit the. This is a link, so we click here, we get to the other part, and then there is a and we loading, and then the data comes in. So it's like not so good experience to the user. So we can use prefetching. So when you when you mouse over this link, you actually made the request, and result of this request is in the cache. Like it's being saved in the cache. So when you click view comments and you go to the page, you also call the request for that query, but the data is in the cache. So we get the result immediately. And as you can see, boom. And this is how it looks without. There is a loading indicator, but this is with prefetching. As you can see, we can do this on mouse over. It doesn't mean that we want to like click here. It fetches data, but maybe in some way. And this is powerful because imagine that we have an app. Like there will be a question, like I think so, about offline support. And imagine that with this, we can actually close the GraphQL client, and we can get around the application with only the cache. So it's like one step to be to create offline support, which you can create. Like I really encourage you to do this stuff. And this is how it works. Like it's a query, it hits the cache. If there is no, it hits the server. If there is, it like gets to the UI, and that's it. And the second part is of this real-time thing experience is our subscriptions. So imagine that we have a list of comments, and in the meantime, someone added some comment. So we want to be notified, and we don't want to refetch everything from the server. Like I told you about data caching, but you can also avoid it. Like if you want to have the list of something like this data from this query always up to date, you can like enable one flag, and that's it. Like force fetch, I think, set to true and that things. So we support subscription, which is a good thing in Apollo because Relay doesn't really it supports it, but only sort of. And yeah, as you can see, I have an app to show you, but yeah, let's show it too. But it won't work. Okay, so so as you can see, we do some action, which is a mutation. We hit the pub subsystem. We hit the GraphQL, then we get the response, and then we want to expose this, provide the response to the client, and that's it. Like this is like basic pub subsystem. And the next, and I will show you the some live coding, but not right now. But let's talk recently, like the latest version of Angular 2 Apollo is 0.7, and since 0.7 we've got no. Server-side rendering like already works with that, so you can use universal, and I have a universal starter kit. So if you want to try out some stuff, you can hit my GitHub/Kamil Kisiela, stuff like this, and you can find the repository and you can play and work with it. So yeah, it's a good because we can. I will show it to you. It's spontaneous. I don't know where it is, but universal starter, npm start, I think, and let me show it to you. And as you can see with universal, I don't know if you are like familiar, but probably are. You can specify the same application on the server and client, and let me show it to you. This is fingers crossed. Yeah, and as you can see, there is an author, which is my name, and we can do some stuff. So let's do this, but let's open it inside. Let's look here, keep your eyes in this part. Let me show it to you. I don't know how to do this. Here, and as you can see, oh, and it's like there is no, it's loading and it's done. Like there is no, let me show there is no blink because it's already in cache. It's because store registration. So on the server side, let me show it to you. Yeah, it's spontaneous. Let's have some fun. So src blah 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 server. Yeah. So on the server side, we fetch the query, we get the data from the store, and because it works with on top of the Redux, we can fetch all the store, and we save it under like some property. Let me show it to you here. So we save it under the window, Apollo state, that kind of stuff. And on the client side, we do. Imagine that this is this is the whole object. Like only those queries we really need to fetch on the runtime, and go to the client Apollo node, Apollo browser. Okay, and as you can see, we put the initial state with this this object we saved on the server side, and we rendered it, and we put the initial state. So we don't have. Let me show you. Yep. Yeah. There wasn't any blink, but now it will be. So this is this part. It's Webpack. It's okay. And as you can see, there is Camille and there is not. Like, and we can avoid it by store registration. So this is another cool feature. And we've got ahead of time compilation support. It's since 0.7. And we've got an example inside our repository. So it's under Angular 2 Apollo /example /hello world. And you've got the whole working example. And this is a good news because some few months ago, we created a support for Angular 1. Angular 1. So it's also working. And let me show you the migration. As you could see, we get there are two ways. We did it very fast. So you can use your you can use your working REST endpoint behind, you can you can save it, you can put this behind the GraphQL layer. So you can inside the resolvers. Let me show it to you. This is. No, this is not. Yeah. So as you could see, it's server, API, and we've got resolvers. So here you could put something like, I don't know, fetch, and path to our API / and it was directors, like movies. Yeah. And you get this value from this endpoint inside your GraphQL, which is good. This is the best thing. And imagine that there is a package called data loader, and it was created by Facebook. So every time you hit this movies, or I don't know, movie / some ID, like movie /2 or 3 and stuff like this, you can there are many requests to the same endpoint. So with data loader, you can cache all the things, and instead of hitting server 5 times, you hit it only 2 because of the data loader. And Facebook uses internally, so it's also good. Yeah, and it's basically it. Go to the other slides. Yeah, and to know more about GraphQL, I recommend you to use this official website made by Facebook. So it's graphql.org. And yeah, there is when you want to know more about Apollo, you need to go to this dev.apollo.com or apollostack.com, something like this. And here is an interesting part because it's Arun Oda from Meteor, not so important. he created a step-by-step process, step-by-step tutorial to create a GraphQL. So to learn GraphQL. So it's also good. And I think that's it, but I can also show to you. No. Okay. And I will show you how the optimistic UI works, because it's really cool. Client, git status. Okay. Okay, let's close all of this. Okay, server is running. Okay, this is it. Okay, so this is here. So let me show you. Oh, this is the optimistic response. So you specify what is the type of that action. It is mutation. And what is the name of that mutation? Submit comment. And let me show you how it looks like. Only the optimistic UI, only the update. Oh, and you can. This is a cool feature, and like this is the best in my opinion, because imagine that this is a watch query. So you're watching something, and you don't you do some action that like you do mutation. So you change something inside your data, but on the server side. But you don't really have to need to fetch the same data from the server to make an update. You can use update queries. So this is the name of that query. So we had something like get movies or get directors. And imagine that this is an action to add some director. So we can update this query by adding something to the array. So we can update this query without hitting the server, because we know the result. So it's really powerful. And it works with optimistic UI. So yeah, and that's it. I won't show it to you, but so thanks a lot. It was fun for me, at least. And feel free. Okay. Thank you so much. And feel free to message me. So if you have any question, and bye. There are always some GIFs, funny GIFs. I don't use it, so I put it at the very end. But because if you have any questions, anything, what's the weather? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, it's imagine that GraphQL is like JavaScript, so it works with everything. So yeah, it's just a specification. So there is a there is a document which is a specification created by Facebook, and it because of this is a specification, they described a lot of things, what to do, what to not, and stuff like this, and how it works internally and stuff like this. So you talk about React. So for React, there is a package called React Apollo, which is the integration with React and Apollo. There is also a package called Loka, and also a package called Relay. So, and there is a Relay 2.0 coming soon. So it's so good. But I recommend use what you want. But the basic idea is that GraphQL is universal, so you can use it with the same query, because I didn't mention it. The same query works when you make the request, when you query something inside your, I don't know, Angular or Angular, Android, on any platform, you send the same request. So you can make even HTTP request to the endpoint inside, I don't know, Android Wear, any kind of stuff, and you get the same result in the different platforms, the same result in any other platform. So it's not platform specific. It's it lives between the client server, and yeah. So you can put, like, imagine that this is a client, this is a server, this is a GraphQL. So you can put here like any data sources you want, and client doesn't know about it. It's like it knows that I want this, 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 and in return I want to the data to look in the same schema as my request, for example, and you don't carry much like the client side app, like the app actually doesn't care about the data sources, so you don't have to, I don't know, make something specific to the, I don't know, SQL, SQL and stuff like this. Like you fetch the data from, oh, and this is important, which is also what I didn't mention. Imagine that you switch from Postgres to MongoDB. And with REST endpoint, you can also do this because of the IDs and stuff. But with GraphQL, you can keep the application the same and change things in the background. And you don't have like versioning. So it's that kind of stuff. So it's a good question. And you was the first one, so it's also good. I don't know what to give. Like Scrum. This is a Scrum. Thanks a lot. And yeah, okay. So if you guys have any question. Yes. Yeah, inside. Yeah, because the result, like basically because I saw you that there is a root, arguments, and context, stuff like this, but it's like you can use like every. Imagine that schema is not a string, but is an object. So you get object, then like object that tells that this is a type of, I don't know, director, and then you specify fields, and each field contain nested objects, and etc. etc. So every like level contains a resolve function, and that's it. Like, and you can put anything you want there, like, you know. So yeah, it's basically this. Is it fulfills the question? Like, yeah, sure. Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, that's true. Because, you know, it's resolver, so yeah, but that's a good question. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Universal. Yeah, universal. Code. You mean caching the, like, when we get the data, like the state of the data before bootstrapping an app, like. No, it's like, imagine that I will show it to you. So, oh yeah, sure. npm start, I think. Okay, so in the meantime, while this is happening, I will show it to you that we render. Yeah, when we hit this default path, we have this ng-app, and ng-app, as you can see, render this index.html. Like this is like it's not HTML because I use EJS templates, so it renders this, and we put this variable, which is a state of our store. So here we fetch some data for the specific query, and this is the same query that we use inside our client. So, you know, you can like import this one, or I don't know, stuff like this. So, and we get only this value to not overload the actual state, like to not expose anything, like everything. We need only those parts, and that's it. And let's go to this index. And as you can see, we save this window Apollo state, like some variable, and we expose this object that is stringified. So you know, and that's it. And it lives until Windows something. So when you go to the client, it's HTML. But you can also do this with Patrick.js, like this guy that created this universal thing with Jeff Whipley. He mentioned that there is a universal cache which I didn't use, but you can do this inside like this service. You don't have to like render the index.html. And let me show you the client. Okay, so it's working right now, and it was here. Okay. Yeah, and we fetch the data from the server again, but we can, like, let me show you. Okay, there is no point, but you get the state at the runtime, like even before the runtime, you get the state, so you can already it's already in cache. So when you watch something, it's in the cache, but it's also force fetched, so you hit the server. You can avoid this, like you could disable the force fetching to get the state of while you rendered the HTML file, and that's it. Like it won't even. No, it's not. No. I will if I would kill and then. No, because because it lives under the same server, and because it's one process. So when I kill this, it kills all. Like because this is like it's not Apollo specific. It's because this app was built that way. Because it's one process, one express server. So yeah, but you could also close the process of GraphQL server, and you can hit refresh. Maybe not refresh, but go back and forth and stuff, like changing the route state, and yeah, it will work because it's in the cache, because you didn't force fetched. Like there is a flag called force fetch that forces hitting the server every time you call the watch query method query and stuff like this. So yeah, that's it. So you guys have any other question? Yeah, sure. You love security. Yeah. No? Yeah, I see. Yeah, sure. Oh, I don't know what to. Sure. Yeah. So yeah, you can. There's I will think it's here. No, it's not. But you can also. I will show it to you on the GitHub API. This is API, and as you can see here, I think it's here. Yeah, you can add some. Let me show it to you. Oh, I can't find it, but it's basically like every time you hit the watch query on something like this, every time you hit the server is actually a GET request, like basic request. So there is no like magic. So you can add some headers, everything, and you can also do like middleware inside the network interface. So it's totally separated for actual Apollo client because it's a like layer on top of it. So yeah, you can do all that kind of stuff. You can even there is an issue on GitHub Apollo, and it's about off-guard and stuff like this. So how to this guy Manuel Flink, something like this, asked that is there a way to change the redirect user to different route on I don't know, no access and stuff like this. And this is not Apollo specific because it's also a thing inside the HTTP service, because you don't have things like do you like? Are you familiar with Angular 1? There was something like provide, and you get the interceptors, and there is no any in Angular 2. So it's like the same thing in Apollo because it's just on request. So yeah, so that's kind of stuff. I don't know if it's a good answer, but if you have any question, like anything to add or something, sure, you can hit me like the server, but after the meetup or something. That's cool. Okay. Do you guys have any other question or like, yeah, even the silliest one? Every question that has a question mark at the end is a question. So, oh, so since this is unobservable, you get the next error and complete it. And since we will change it because we want to expose like the same experience as the HTTP service, so the migration would be easier. There is already PR for it, but there are promises and observables inside the Angular to Apollo service. And after the change, it will all be like streams. So, but there is a watch query that watches query that Neville completes, and there is a query and mutation. And each promise or observable get the error. Like the error is passed to the promise and to observable, so you can get the things. And also there is it's not like it's not just like a plain error, it's Apollo error interfaced. So you get you can, like there is like how to say it. So it could be a GraphQL error, or it could be a network error. So it's separated, but inside one error, like error object. So you get all the data that, like, yeah, that kind of stuff. So you get all the information inside the observable and inside the promise, but there won't be any promises. So yeah, one thing that is a promise so I can promise you that there won't be any promise and there will be all observable and streams. So yeah, and yeah, you had the question also. Oh, I'm not familiar with it. Like you have to like, since this is a GraphQL and it's not Apollo specific, stuff like that, you can also, it's not even on Apollo specific, but yeah. So you should like find something because I'm not familiar with this, like, yeah. But I think that the authentication inside the GraphQL is not so, it's not like well defined. Like a couple months ago, Facebook actually told something about authentication and how to handle that kind of stuff, and it's yeah. So that's the thing. You can see the talk of, I don't know, it's Lee Byron or some other guy from Facebook from React Conf or React Europe, something like this, and it explained all the feature that will come to GraphQL and how to handle that kind of stuff. So I recommend highly to watch this. So yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think in Apollo they're working on it. Like, I can't promise because I heard something, but it's not like solid solid information. So yeah, but maybe they will. Like, they use something in production in I don't know which optics. Oh, and optics. It's not an advertisement because they don't pay me. But imagine that you have to, like, many of you, like, how many of you are familiar with Meteor? And there is yeah. So you know the Kadira. Oh, so in Meteor you get the live queries and you hit the server and stuff like this on the WebSocket side. So you want to get the statistics, what were the queries, how those queries looked like, and stuff like this. And you get the same tool for Apollo, and it's called Optics. Meteor. Kadira. It's like, yeah, Kadira. I think so. Kadira. Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, Kadira.io, and it's a performance monitoring tool for Meteor, stuff like that. And you get the same experience in Apollo. because of the optics. So, and it's good because Facebook created, like, invented GraphQL, but the good thing is that Meteor, which is like Apollo is a part of Meteor, they took care of it. So it will go further. So yeah, that's good. And they will create a lot of services around GraphQL, so it's even better to develop. Like, yeah, it has a huge potential. Like, in my opinion, I don't know if you guys agree, but it's yeah, my presentation wasn't like the best one, but you get the idea how the GraphQL looks like and what it does and what it could do and stuff like this, and it's so impressive. Yeah, I think so. But like, I'm the guy from Angular to Apollo, so I talked weird stuff that I believe in. So yeah. So you guys have any question, other question, any type of question, or maybe Darius have a question? Yeah, because I forgot about it. Like, I can't do two things at once, and when I speak, I can think. No, just kidding. Yeah. Also, it's sweet. Yeah, if you guys have any question, if not, that it's an end. Like, thank you so much. Yeah, and if you want to know more and stuff, you can, like, I actually recommend to follow this Angular to Apollo, and like, yeah. Oh, and the GitHub example, which is under Apollo Stack organization, is always up to date. So if you want to know more about some feature, you get to the example and you get the answer for your question. So yeah. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much once again.